We're going to look at some ground rules, housekeeping rules, basically. I will advise that we mute ourselves in order to avoid background noise. We should also pay attention critically so that we can learn this particular series. And then we are allowed to ask questions, putting comments in the chat section, and we will take your questions after the speakers have presented. So please feel free to do that. At this point, I just want us to have an idea, more like a preamble of what today's discourse is all about. Architecture is art of a people etched on diverse landscapes. Landscape is a canvas on which human functional arts are structured or are sculptured. These arts are pluri-versal, reflecting the geosophic perspectives of a people. The arts are not static, but they respond to changes influenced by political economy, prevailing social construct, and forces of nature, especially devastating impact of climate anomalies. Therefore, narrative of human civilization cannot be divorced from the supporting landscape. Nigeria, as we know, has diverse landscapes. They include coastal landscapes, river basin landscapes, rainforest landscapes, arid landscapes, and Sahel Savannah ecological belts, which is the great, which is tailored towards the Great Green Wall Initiative, currently attracting International Union of Architects, the UIA. The great question here is, what architectural originality and ingenuity can turn critical Nigerian landscape around for good? That's the question we are asking today. Architecture here is not restricted to only art of building design and construction, mind you. It is viewed through the window of architectural anthropology as whatever is designed by man and his immediate predecessor, including cities, urban open spaces, public arts, public realm, human settlements, livelihood, conducive environment, and improved livability capacity. It is situating architecture in critical regionalism. Architecture is critical landscape in critical landscapes call for imagination on how to proffer solutions to contemporary environmental challenges. That through the window of local design philosophy that accommodates technological externalities, without trending global urban homogeneity. This discourse will examine architecture in critical Sahel Savannah landscapes. So at this point, we're going to introduce our speakers for today. We have two speakers. The first speaker is Dr. Adejumo from the Department of Architecture, University of Lagos. He is an associate professor of architecture, a past president of International Federation of Landscape Architects, Africa region. He is an external collaborator, Critical Landscape Design Laboratory, Graduate School of Design, Harvard University, Cambridge, USA. He's also an external collaborator, West Midlands National Park Lab at Birmingham City University, School of Architecture and Design, Birmingham in UK, and Director of Architecture and Urbanism Research Hub, University of Lagos. At this point, we are going to call him up to throw more light on what our discourse is all about for today. Dr. Adejumo, you're welcome to the podium.
Thank you, Dr. Mrs. Ekpo. I appreciate the introduction, and you've done a very good introduction. Yes, so we're going to spend the next 30, maybe 35 minutes to introduce ourselves to what we know better. All right, many of us have been practicing for years. Some have been teachers too. So it's not really new. It just reminds us that we got to a point in which if we do not do anything, our contract-happy political elite will bring people from Middle East to take all the job. And that's why we're trying to here to remind ourselves. I'm going to share my slide now so that we can kickstart immediately. Thank you. I hope you can see the slide. Good. All right. As I said, this is architecture in critical landscapes. It's about looking at issues that are going on globally. Whatever we are doing these days in the environmental design field, the broad field, they have some global timelines. Timeline number one is 2030, UN SDG, we know that one from 2015. We have another timeline, 2015, UN population projection. We've been told that Nigeria is going to be 411 million people living in Nigeria. The land area has it's not elastic. So same land area where 30 million people live some 75 years ago. Now, 200 people are living now. It's going to be 411 people living in the same country. So question then is, there must be a way we should start thinking now, where do we live? How do we meet our needs? Then that is the 250 UN climate report, in which humanity is looking for a planet where there is a level of order in which the temperature is normal. Of course, that one we know that UIA has its own climate vision agenda. And if you are following the issue, you realize that UIA, this 2023 conference is going to be on climate change. Then there's the 2050 UN vision for biodiversity. Much more is 2063, what we call African Union agenda. All of us must know that. There we are to discuss what kind of Africa do we want. They started in 2013 and it will end in 2063. The idea here, from what we have learned from all the international professional bodies, International Federation of Landscape Architects that I belong, ISOCAP, which is City and Regional Planning, and much more, UIA, International Union of Architects, believe that architects should be solution providers. And that's what we want to look at today. So we have this outline here. We'll be looking at what landscape is. We have to look because we're not talking about landscape architecture here, landscape. Neither are we making a mistake of calling it landscaping, simply because that is the common language we have within our colleagues. Even those one is professional field, we must differentiate between this. We'll now look at what is critical landscape, define it in Nigerian context. Then we will now pick one of the critical landscapes and look at why, because it is what International Union of Architects is doing, is midwifing now for us to look at it. We will look at the approach that can be done to achieve it, because It's not the first time that humanity will be looking at the arid area. China has got it their own. That is the first Great Green Wall. The African Great Green Wall is not the first one in the first place. Don't make the mistake. China has done it. They have converted almost about half of their desert into productive land. So we'll look at how we will go about that. I will stay here. The landscape here, it's going to be a spatial representation of an ecosystem. That's what landscape is. We know it that we normally say landscape is a view of the outdoor environment from the window you look at. Yeah, that's right. But landscape here is an overlapping three issues. There's the physical dimension that we see. That is the meaning dimension, because we attach meaning to different landscapes. And that is the perception of what we see. So we will look at this one. Does a typical landscape consist of two geographical components, the geographic and the functional one? So it is georeference, one way or the other. Then let us look at what critical landscapes are. I will read the one that seems to be the norm. It's a critical landscape address unique land areas set aside for its aesthetic, recreational, and other values that enhance quality of life. That is a global definition. In other words, it's looking for a landscape that is more of a lot of scenic views and aesthetics. But for this discourse, critical landscape for this presentation are valuable land resources that are threatened by unsustainable land management or destructive natural phenomena. They are critical because if they are not taken care of, we'll be asking ourselves, where do we get the food to eat in 2050? Currently, 50% of Nigerian rice is imported. Currently, in Lagos here, 98% of the fish consumed in Lagos are imported. When I say imported from other states, a state that has 22% of the land importing 90% of the fish is abnormality. So the concern here is to restore the productivity of such landscapes sustainably towards inclusive development of the people. So that's the issue. So let us look at 5 of the critical landscapes in Nigeria. Number 1 here is the Niger Delta. This is man-made destruction. It's now critical. So much polluted that the houses are having problems there. It's unfortunate. Sorry about that. Can you just mute all your here, please? So the first one is Niger Delta mangrove landscapes. 560 kilometers. Look at what we have reduced it to. The people who have been used to eating good tilapia are now forced to eat sardine, imported, because we could not manage oil exploration. Or we colluded with oil people who are prospecting for it to destroy our own landscape. They made the money, they have gone. Question is, what do we do? Now here is Flow River Basin. If you know the story of Upper Benue, the story of Lower Benue River Basin, Niger River, the River Niger River, this is Lokoja, which is the middle Niger Basin. It's flooded. It wasn't like this before. The question is, what building do we put here? Do we just keep quiet and see and look at people's resources going to the drain? Here is the coastal landscape. This is Aja in Lagos. Same Lagos. This used to be the beach here where this is. It has receded. Is it what we are going to live? All right. Of course, here is Anambra Basin. Gully erosion. Typical of the limestone field geological formation of Anambra Basin. This is what we have. And we left it. How do we build houses there? How do we design? Finally, the fifth is what we call Sahel Savannah bioregion. All right? Is the biophysical or cultural, is a transitional landscape between Sahara Desert and Sudan. This is what it is right now. It was not, it wasn't like this before years back. We left it. And we're now saying, how do we live here? Which kind of architecture do we talk here? We're not, when we say architecture here, we're not looking at it from the perspective of building architecture that we have boxed ourselves to in Nigeria. We look from it from architectural anthropological definition, which is basically whatever man has designed, including his city. That's what he said. So we will use this one as an example and find out what must we do to be thinking between now and 2050. Are we going to wait for the foreigners to think for us? We were not there during the Athens Charter in 1933. They just gave us, this is the philosophy you should be using, and we took it. We have made a mess of our cities and the buildings. So, if you are looking at it, this is an old Nigerian map. This area is the critical point we are dealing with here. The Sahel belt. But it's more than that. It's more than that. Now, this is the extent of the certification in Nigeria. All these states here. It's coming. Sahara Desert is coming. If we do not do something, we are going to run into a problem as a people. And this is what we're talking about. This is what interests International Union of Architects. This is Sahel zone, starting from Senegal to Djibouti. You know, this belt is what the International Union of Architects is now working on how do they live here? What architecture do they put here? We will, in other words, they are agreeing with a little history. African Union Great Green Wall Project, ironically, was conceived by our former president, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, in 2005, originally to halt the Sahel in Nigeria. But in 2007, African Union saw this and they were excited, and they took it over. And African Union eventually made it a Pan-African agency, and they put the headquarters at Mauritania. An agreement was sent, and the global community took it up, especially the UN. And the zone received between 200 and 800 millimeters of rain per year. That is dry. And they saw that already a lot of inflow of Sahara is coming in. And if you go back and look at the certification, you will see the maps by FAO and other bodies telling us what is going on. So, and that's why the idea came, banking of Chief Olusegun Obasanjo's idea, taken over by African Union, that the Great Green Wall Project will build a strip of 8,000 kilometers. I will go back again. 8,000 kilometers, starting from Senegal and here, and end in Eritrea to stop the downward movement of this area. Okay? That was it. That is, they want to build 8,000 kilometers, multiplied by 15 kilometers wide. It is more of an environmental forestry. And International Union of Architects, they know that. If you have been following International Union of Architects, realize that they have been talking to foresters in the last 3 or 4 years of what to do. And then African Union Great Green Wall, they have 3 broad goals, but they have many objectives. Let us just pick 3 of the goals. They want to restore 100 million hectares of currently degraded land. They want these plants to extract pollutant, especially carbon, 250 million tons of carbon. And they want to create 10 million jobs in rural Africa. Why? Let us look at when this idea was sold to the United Nations. This is what UK Ministry of Defense says, that it is good. If you create jobs, then the 60 million people who migrate and die in the Mediterranean will not in the next 2 decades. So they supported it with money. UN now said, well, this is great because Africa has the highest number of people who are hungry, 800, I think 1,000 people out acute hunger. And they feel if they can grow drought-resistance crops, it will stop the issue. Finally, then they saw it as a new symbol of hope. Why? Because globally, the new China has battled their own to a standstill. China has planted, has regenerated their own desert, and is now producing for them. Because China knows that they have 1.3 million people, and they must feed. And that is why they took this issue. So, but let us look at the Great Green Wall Nigeria, not the Great Green Wall Africa. The Great Green Wall Nigeria is this area, Kebbi State, going like this until you hit Borno State here. That is 1,500 kilometers long, and they want to plant 15 kilometers wide. Talking about 22,500 square meters of degraded land. And it will impact 25 million Nigeria out of the 200 million Nigeria. Now, that was the Nigerian aspect that Nigeria extracted from. And so, what did the Great Green Wall Nigeria Initiative, what did it say? It said that the major objective for them is that it should seek to recover degraded land. 2, it should be able to anchor youth, inclusive youth development. 3, that is successful implementation of the national strategic plan. Unfortunately, unlike many other nations, architects are not involved, or designers are not involved in National Planning Commission when decision is being taken, because we have boxed ourselves to building alone. So in other nations, they think that this is what must be done on individual building scale, on neighborhood scale, on city scale, and much on original basis scale. So, these organizations in Nigeria believe that they have achieved so much, but as a contrary opinion, that because of sharp practices, that is 2007, less than 4% achievement has been gotten. And if we do not do anything right now, we will not be able to meet the target in 2030. The same thing for Africa. And this Senegal is way ahead of us. So, but our achievement is not very, very good. In a study conducted by this gentleman working in The Hague, he said that it's only 19.2% of the degraded land was restored in 10 years in Nigeria. As a result, the Great Green Wall Department at Abuja should not fool us. And they said that, to attain the target by 2030 is worrisome. The reason they found out that it is too rigid, that they approach top-bottom approach. All right? Not bottom-up. That the people were not carried along. That they cannot stay at Abuja dictating to somebody as Gudu or Guda in Katsina. As a result, it didn't go. That their program is not people-friendly and too many sharp practices. That's what the report was saying from Hague. And that if nothing is done, since Sahara is coming at 0.6 kilometers annually, if nothing is done, it will take us 80 years to get to the target that was set. The same thing for Africa. And he suggested on behalf of the world body that there must be a paradigm shift. That the implementation program is a more holistic strategy that will integrate innovative solutions with inclusive participation of local people to guarantee sustainable development. And that is exactly what International Union of Architects was talking about. For many students that register for the competition, have many head of schools in Nigeria who have been informed. And many of you join UIA when they have their webinar some 5-6 weeks ago. They announced that there must be a new paradigm. For UIA, there must be a new paradigm to bring in the regional influence in Africa. For you and me in Nigeria, there must be a new paradigm. If UIA is International Union of Architects, then ACON and other architectural bodies saying we must sit down too and look for a paradigm shift to take care of this critical landscape. Because if out of the 5 critical landscapes, we could not sort out one, how do we go to the next one? And that is why International Union of Architects came on board, looking for competition amongst students to generate new ideas. But why? The idea is very simple, that if they get new set of architects in Nigeria who can think outside the silo, who can think on a broader perspective, regional, city, village, and one building, then they can now produce new generation of African thinkers as architects to redefine the future before 2063. And let's look at some UIA submissions. He said they see architects as environmental solution providers, not building solution providers. They see that they are looking for architects that must align with the climate change action that UIA is working on behalf of UN, United Nations Development Body. They believe that as against going for environmental forestry that was before, they opted for social forestry, which is architecture on community or village scale, beyond one building. And the idea is that it will have the capacity to provide a foundation for sustainable growth of the people in the Sahel belt. And I agree with that. If you can do that again and apply this one for the remaining 4 other belts, Nigeria will be turned around. They are thinking that there will be intervention in social housing, intervention in community civic buildings, even on a village scale, improve livability index, create livelihood improvement, much more, help the United Nations body to battle climate change anomalies. And so, here we are, same place, moving like here. Today, you and me, we are here as Nigerian environmental planners. physical planners or policy planners looking for a way in which, if UI is thinking about Africa, we must think like Nigeria now. What can we do? We have left this one for long. How do we participate? How do we restore this? And that's what we are talking today. You see, the UIA, Great Green Wall Initiative, believe in ecological design. And the ecological design for UIA is 3 strands of architecture. That's why I say it's not Nigerian perception of building as architecture. First is architecture here. From building perspective, talking about energy efficient design. Can we generate it? Homegrown energy efficient residential, homegrown energy efficient public building, bioclimatic design, not design with climate that died in 1965. Art sheltered architecture. Can we bring vernacular architecture with a responsive design, not traditional architecture, vernacular? Then can we now soak everything in what we call regionalism? And they answer that landscape architects are supposed to handle it this way. Look at the processes on which these operate. Look at a holistic approach to the landscape design, not landscaping here. So can we design with the ecosystem? Can we integrate management that will build livelihood? And they believe urban designers, or what we call urban architects, should be thinking, do we know the village process, natural process in villages? Can we conceive a green way? Or how do we incorporate urban parks, urban farming in the communities within the context of 21st century? That's what they are already doing. Now, that is what UIA is thinking about. So we are now saying, how do we go about it? What should underpin it? The idea came that this one can be achieved through critical regionalism approach. I will not use the word philosophy. I will not use the word theory. I will call it an approach. It's an approach that sees critical landscapes from the physical design of neighborhood and villages. Dear, in other words, for us that we are now taking Sahel as our case study, is to create and revitalize and restore Sahel ecological region through physical design and planning of neighborhoods, villages, and farmstead from a regionally based sustainable perspective. In other words, the design should evolve. The design should evolve, excuse me. This one should evolve within the Sahel Nigeria. We're not talking about Sahel Senegal. We're not talking about Sahel Chad. We're not talking about Sahel Djibouti. That we must look at our own Sahel and see what can be done to restore it. Because when the next seed is come, we must look at our own river basin and see what can be done. We must sit down and look at our own Niger Delta. We have message to what can we do from design perspective. But now we are talking about Sahelian issue here. Let us look at basic thing about critical regionalism. One, it's basically an ecological regionalism. We are looking at the region from that perspective, from the from the not only vegetation, everything that makes ecosystem work. In other words, you are looking at it from the perspective that whatever you are coming, you should have more of sense of place. Sense of place is about the spirit of place. Maybe I should go back here for us to look at here. You will see if you look at here. It's a regionalism and search for a genus loci. This one means spirit of place. Every ecosystem has its own spirit of place. Rainforest has its own. So, and that's what we are saying here. That we must look within that it must be able to generate sense of place. It must be place specific. All right? Then it must be able to generate ecological. Really sorry, but sorry for this, the cutted transmission. It's a little technical error here that we are facing. What? Okay, well, so this is what I will do. I will go back with one or two slides because Orlando, you did not hear what we said before. I'll go to one or two slides before this. What they are saying, in effect, is architecture should be perceived as tectonic, with little reference to scenic scenography. In other words, we must have capacity to reinterpret vernacular elements in any region and insert it within architecture where we are doing. It is all about bringing culture, bringing identity, maintaining the identity of a region. So, what identity conscious vernacular architectural design elements can be applied to international style without diminishing inherent universality is what we are talking about here. The issue at hand is how to appreciate traditional civilization. Not that we'll be saying that until we wait here and allow the West to come and civilize us, how do we appreciate traditional civilization and fit in within global civilization? That is what critical regionalism is talking about as a philosophy. So, and they have some processes, very simple process that you and me know. One, we must have the capacity to collect environmental data before we just start putting our hand on our sketch pad to design. We must understand the topography. We must not only the topography, we must understand the vegetation. What do the people use the vegetation for? We must understand the soil. How did it depreciate? Can this soil carry this building? We must understand the geology we are working on, and in all these analyses and submissions, the community participation is very important. In other words, we should be able to get involved in place-conscious public realm. Play is talking about the people, their way of life, their socials, their religion, in their public realm. Not that we should go and impose Abuja on any village. Much more, the shelter bed concept must be to mitigate climate resources in that area. Question is, what is shelter bed? That's what we building to be safe. You know? So, we are saying we must do this shelter beds to meet various needs. Right. Need one. We need shelter beds for village protection or city protection. Within the city, it's called green wedge. In other words, we are not just planting for planting's sake as it is done in environmental forestry. But in social forestry, the trees are introduced to safeguard the protection. We must be able to safeguard individual buildings in the village or farm set or community. We must be able to safeguard the farmland from the harsh sand dust and the climate. We must be able to create a communal ranch for the animals to graze. We must be able to save the roads too, using shelter bed system, which is free now. Then we must be able to secure the community watershed. Much more, the civic building, schools, religious area, we must be able to get them within the shelter bed. What we are saying is this. Here's a typical example. Trees are not planted aimlessly. It's planted to secure this farm, the crops. Because the outer trees here, what you see over there, block the sand dust. This is hydrology of the community. You plant so that you secure this water, not only for drinking, where to be treated, but for irrigation that will enhance climate smart agriculture, a means of livelihood in that area. We're not saying we can have a communal ranch, and the crisis of farmers and husband that is now that is causing crisis in Nigeria can be solved on village basis, on farmstead basis, using this shelter bed, using even big trees here, allowing irrigation here for batches of this. If individual cannot do it, then it can be done on the community basis. So, the purposeful community tree cover that had been desired by African Union, the purposeful community cover that had been desired by the GGI of Nigeria, it's all about the diverse shelter bed topologies. They all join together to constitute village tree cover. Multiple village tree cover constitute regional afforestation belts. So the choice of plans that influence community, including ushers, must be made not by people, not by staying in Lagos and be dictating to them in Borno State, but the people there will say, this is what we have been doing in the last 50 years. Then we should use their plan resources. Not that we are bringing our own plan from Abuja to plant somewhere in the middle of nowhere in Borno State. No. So social forest is about the people. Social forestry is about livelihood. So critical architectural regionalism is placemaking. Placemaking is about identity consciousness, peculiar to that area. The end product is to have a village master plan. Or you want to call it village strategic plan, or you want to call it village action plan. And when you join different villages, it will make up the 15 kilometers wide and the length to make the entire Africa. It becomes a Sahel original master plan. So, architecture in critical landscape is a place-conscious architecture of residential buildings. Architecture in critical landscape is place-conscious architecture of public realm, the public sphere, where the mosques, the churches, the emir's house, the local government is. Those are the public realm. It's a place-conscious architecture of the bioregion. So when they get over there, you will know where you are. It's a place-conscious, climate-smart agriculture supported by adequate water from regional aquifer. Architecture of critical landscape is a place-conscious indigenous species afforestation to fight climate change, meet food security, and construction material. Architecture of a critical landscape is a place-conscious renewable energy grid community power generation. Architecture of critical landscape is not shoplifted architecture of Negev from Israel. You go back and steal it. Or you steal it from Saudi Arabia desert or from Peruvian desert. No, it's not shoplifted architecture from Arizona, in Phoenix, Arizona, or Nebraska. Neither is this Chinese architecture from Chinese desert. Neither is it Francis Kere's Burkina Faso Sahel structures. Francis Kere designed, constructed for his people in Sahel. So we are quick to go and lift drawings, lift things. No, it's architecture of Sahel bed for Borno, Sahel bed for Kebbi, Sahel bed for the bed we are talking about. That is architecture, please. Thank you. We want to say we are sorry for what we have, the process of cut in communication. I will now hand over back to Dr. Mrs. Echo and tell us what to do next. Thank you.